Tonight, Nelle Maxey's come to speak a bit about the Water Modernization Act. And, you know, I think the more that people get involved in understanding how they're legislating and commodifying our resources and turning water especially into a commodity, and the ways that they try and manipulate the public around these types of acts is unconscionable. And it takes every single one of us to become educated, to learn what's going on with the water through these legislative acts, and to voice our opinion and to become involved in these critical issues, because this is a critical period in time. Water is going to be very, very much more precious than oil or gold, and we are actually living in an area where 35% of the potable groundwater for this continent comes right from here. So water is a very important issue, and we really have to fight to keep the water quality in this region the way it is, because they want to attack it now in every possible way. So I want to just step back. I want Nelle Maxey to come and inform you about this issue. And again, thank you all for coming.
Well, good evening. This is great. Thank you, Marilyn, and thank you for hosting us on Sinai's land. So, where are we in this process? The first slide's been up for a while, so maybe you've taken a look at it. This all started in 2009. I found out about it when my daughter sent me an email that was a statement of expectations from a group of environmental NGOs, non-governmental organizations, including the David Suzuki Foundation, the Sierra Club, WWW, Eco Justice, all these big groups who are supposed to be representing us. And how they got sucked in by the government, they got invited behind closed doors for the beginning meetings that none of us knew about, just like industry did. And basically got told that this act was going to really protect the ecosystem health. And so they all signed on to all the stuff the government's doing. So I don't know what will happen with the regulations. We won't know until after they're written. Okay, next slide. I just wanted to do a little background on globalization, because this is really what this is all about. Professor Claudia von Werleff published this article on global research. Globalresearch.ca is a think tank out of Ottawa, or out of Ontario. You can just Google global research. Or you can Google, is there an alternative to plundering the earth? And you'll get this whole article. I just have a few quotes. Remember, in Canada, Harper passed the law a few years ago that if you want to get funding for infrastructure, for water and wastewater, you have to enter into a P3 with a private corporation. It's all wrapped up. So, new forms of private property are created through the clearance of public property and the transformation of formerly public and small-scale private services and industries to a corporate business sector. So commodification, is water a widget? I mean, really. Social, cultural, traditional, and ecological considerations are abandoned and give way to a mentality of plundering all global resources that we still have. But you can see that this pie chart here is from 2010, from the USA in 2010. Although Canada is very, very similar. All the green pieces of the pie go to the top 10%. The 2 yellow pieces go to the bottom 90% of the population in the States. You can just, it's the same for Canada. Notice that the top 1% there have 43% of all the money in the world, of all the money in the US. Now this is the US 10 years or 9 years before the last slide, and you'll notice that the top 1% had 33% of the money at that point. That was 9 years before the slide before, where they have 40, what was it, 7? Anyway, so gush up economics. So money is becoming more and more and more concentrated at the top as a result of this globalization. Next slide. So money is abstract wealth. It's not real. It's made up. I really love this quote. The result is a hole in the ground, and next to it a garbage dump with used commodities, outdated machinery, and money without value. So natural resources are concrete wealth. Money is abstract wealth. Once all the concrete wealth, which today consists mainly of the last natural resources, is gone. Now the very, very main thing in the whole government's logic, this is the keystone. Under the Water Act, the BC government owns all the water in BC, and that was all over the Living Water Smart website. Since the consultations, they've moved a lot of it out, but you can still find it. When we went to that Nelson workshop, when John Slater got up to give the opening address, one of the very first things out of his mouth was, under the Water Act, the government owns all the water in BC. Well, the hands shot up all around the room. Here's what the Water Act actually says. The property in and the right to the use and flow of all the water at any time in a stream in British Columbia are for all purposes vested in the government, except only insofar as private rights have been established under licenses issued or approvals, which are permits, given under this or a former act. So who vested the water to the government? What do you think? Who did? Does anybody know?
I did.
Well, sorta. The Crown bestows rights to the government. We live in a constitutional monarchy. The Crown is the institution which represents the power of the people above government and political parties. The Crown, represented by the head of state, retains the powers of government, while the governing party, that's the party of the day, exercises the powers of government. The Crown, however, only allows the government and political parties to exercise powers in trust for use on behalf of the people. That's the order of authority in a constitutional monarch. And then we have Maud Barlow from the Council of Canadians, who published an article about what was going on in Ontario and water back in 2009, and she stated it very well. Under common law, tradition followed in all provinces and territories except Quebec, water is recognized as a public trust. It belongs collectively to all, and governments must manage water in the public interest. And really, it's all in the language. This is a wonderful chart that came out of this book, Oh Canada. I read a quote from it in an article about water, and I went to the UBC website. I just Googled UBC Press, Oh Canada, and ordered it. It's a wonderful book. It covers everything about water. And this chart was in there in the chapter that's on the debate. This is a known debate. Is water a commons or a commodity? It's been going on for years. When water's a commons, the people own it. It's a human right. I'm running down that central column. I gave you this so that you'll have access to it in the future. The pricing is low. You're given your license in perpetuity. The goals are social equity and local livelihoods. The manager is decentralized and democratic. The management process is conservation. Access is a human right. And problem solving is through the soft path, which is on this side. I'll talk about it in a minute. When water is considered a commodity, it's an economic good. Pricing is full cost and terms are limited. The goals are an investment market, security for the investment market actually. The manager is the market. The management process is supply and demand. Access is a human need, not a right. It's something we need, they admit that, but it's not a right. And problem solving is the hard path. So soft path solutions, we all assume that conservation of water is a social responsibility. And I know for a fact that everyone who lives here in this valley, or most 90% of the people in this valley, understand that. So here's how the government framed what we were going to talk about at the workshop. They said their principles were sustainability, First Nations accommodation, science, integration. Integration is about the fact that we have so many different laws governing water in this province, in all provinces, but ours is the worst in the country. Secure investment climate, when they got to that one, you should have heard the noise.